Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to McNeil's Garage. Today we are be working on the 94 Chevy Impala SS. Can't wait. All right, so I'm gonna go back and for some of the new viewers, talk about what's going on here with the 94 Impala. Several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, there's another 94 Impala out on the side of the hill. It came with the LT1 4L60 transmission. I gave it to my daughter Tabby. Then we went out and bought a 6.0 LQ460 with a 4L80 transmission. Swapped it out in that Impala out there. She went to UNOH. She got in a wreck up at UNOH. Totaled that car out. Bought the car back. She went and found a newer, well, a new to her, 94 Impala SS. I drove it for a while. She drove it for a while. I went ahead and pulled all the drivetrain out of the wrecked Impala, stuck it down into this new Impala. I drove it for a couple of weeks, probably about a month or so, to back and forth to work, make sure everything was good. She came down. She's 3.5 hours away going to school. She came down, picked up her Impala, drove it back to school, came back down again with it. Everything was doing good. Went to a cruise in here in town, and on the way back up, she called, said it shut off. It made a loud pop. I'm assuming backfire. Lost power steering, lost the transmission, caused the car, the motor probably shut off. Coasted to the side of the road. It was on I-75. You leave here, you go through Chillicothe, you go through Dayton, Ohio, get on I-75 going to Lima, Ohio. So she got it all the way up to Dayton, got on I-75 to head north to Lima. Loud pop, killed the motor, goes off the side of the road. One of her buddies came down, tried to fix it, couldn't figure it out. Got it towed back to Lima. So I'm hoping, figuring, since she's going to a mechanic school, that they can figure out up there. Nah. They looked at all the wiring that I put in. They said, we don't know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. So that's what we got. So now everybody's up to speed on what's going on. So everyone knows how much I hate electrical stuff. So I'm going to try to troubleshoot electrical stuff. I don't know. So, all right. So now you're up to speed. Let's figure out what we're going to be doing. All right. So we're going to go through and look at the wiring there again. I'm sure y'all going to grab about the wiring. I took the old wiring harness that we had made off of the old Impala, stuck on here. I don't know, we probably got 1,000 miles on it before it shut off on her. So I'm going to show you what I already did. The battery was dead, so I charged the battery up. One of the fuses back there was burnt, so I changed that fuse. Took the computer out. I was hoping it'd be a simple fix. Put it in my wood truck that has a 5.3 in it that I put in there. Swapped the computers out. The wood truck fired up with her computer. So I know it's not the computer. These wires here goes to her headlights. She put new headlights in. I know everyone was asking what those other headlights. She said these headlights are so much better. So she needs to clean all that up. All this wiring here goes to her nitrous relay, her switch inside. This is her tack for inside. These plugs here has always been dead. I think this switch here was for the ABS. As you can tell, I did the delete on that. The ground's tight. There's a ground back there that's tight. The ground over there on the battery's tight. So I do believe all the grounds is tight. I had my wife out here yesterday. She said she heard the fuel pump come on. So it's got, the fuel pump is working, I assume. I did spray it, and it's probably a no-no, but I did it anyway. Sprayed it with ether, and it tried to start. So I'm gonna say it's getting fire. Everything else is working. Might just be a fuel issue. So I'm gonna get it up in the air. Nope. First of all, I'm gonna open this door. You know, everyone knows the fuse box, the fuse panel, fuse box, fuse panel, whatever, is right here. So I'm going to go get my test light and test all the fuses. And fingers crossed, which I know it ain't gonna happen. That'd be way too easy. I'm going to see if there's any fuse that is burnt. Yes, I know my garage is a mess. We just got back from Texas. There's a sniper goes on my Caprice. All those tools we took with us down to Texas. But anyway, I'm gonna put y'all back on the stand. And if I find anything, I'll bring you over here, because I know you all don't want to sit here listening to that dinging. So I'm just going to check all the fuses. If all the fuses are good, I'm going to take it up. I have not replaced the fuel filter on this car. I replaced it on the other car, but not on this one here. So would it be a fuel filter issue? Not letting no fuel getting up here? I took off the I might just take off. Yeah, we'll see. All right, let me go check all the fuses. So I'm going to check the fuses over there, show y'all how to do it. I've already did the one inside. You take your test light, instead of pulling every one of them out, hook your test light up to the ground on your battery, since it's right here. And on your fuses, you have a little metal bar, and you got your key on, and it shows that each side of your fuse is good, and it lights up. That way I don't got to take every one of them out and inspect it, make sure that they ain't broke or whatever. So all the ones underneath here, all the fuse underneath there is good. So I just text Tabby and asked her. I've always thought it would have been the crank sensor. Let me go turn the key off. I've always thought it's been the crank sensor, but she said that they changed the crank sensor on it when they had it up there. I know the wires is close to the exhaust, so who knows? Maybe the wires of the crank sensor got to the headers. Might have burned them. I don't know. Sounds good. So I'm gonna put it up in the air. I'll take the starter off, and to get to the crank sensor, which I think is a bad deal, but it is what it is. So let me get this thing up in the air and we'll go in and take a look at the crank sensor. All right, so I'm gonna try to get you in here. Here's your starter. You got these 2 bolts. Make sure you take the ground off the battery, because I'm not gonna unwire this. I'm hopefully it's gonna let it hang down here to get up here and look at the crank sensor. But because if you don't, you grind that out, it's gonna spark 4th of July already. So I don't know how we're gonna do it with y'all in here. So I gotta get up in there. All right, make sure you always use starter bolts. I got that in like it to go in there and grabs it. ARP. I like ARP bolts. Yeah, I know they're expensive, but they're good bolts. You don't have to worry about it. I got this cover made to keep the heat off of it. Well, I know the starter got a little warm. And I'd say, let me see if I can get y'all up in there. Well, I unhooked the crank sensor, and I know y'all gonna be upset, but I pulled it back up top so I could mess with it up top. And I put a multimeter on it, and I found it's got ground to it, and it's got power to it. It's got 12 point, whatever it is, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, something like that. So I put a little cover around the wires, so hopefully it won't burn. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the starter back on there, and I'm gonna check the fuel system on it, because I don't know. I really don't know what it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the starters back up and get everything buttoned up down here, and try to get these wires away from the headers a little bit so they won't be getting so hot. I know this cover makes it a little difficult sometimes, but at least I know the starter won't be getting real hot. So get my starter bolts back on. Maybe. Maybe. Maybe not. You definitely don't want to strip these things out, because that wouldn't be no good. And just for K and G's, which means kicks and giggles, stick this up there, and I'm gonna go back there and find the fuel filter. Maybe the fuel filter might be clogged, not getting no fuel up there. I don't know. Because besides this, I have no idea where to go to. I wish I was really smart. Well, if I was really smart, I'd just go out and buy me a new vehicle and forget about it. That way I don't have to work on junk. What film would that be, right? Or just slip the LT1 in there and don't have to worry about it. At least that's what my wife says. But sometimes I think she's pretty smart. So we'll put this cover back on there. I just wish they made a set of headers that would fit, give you plenty of room, get away from all the wiring and everything else. But I reckon that's the price we pay for playing around being stupid. So, but I'm gonna let the car back down, pull that wire up for the starter, and try to get that out of the road. And hopefully I can get that out of the road and then come back down here and find the fuel pump, the fuel filter, check the fuel filter. I even unplugged the line going to the fuel filter, turn the key on, see if we got any fuel coming out of the back there, which my wife did say that it's getting fuel. I'm sorry. My wife did say that it is getting, that the fuel pump turns on. So let me get it on the ground. Let me see if I can get that starter wire up off the headers. And I'm gonna need to do something with the driver's side header, because it's sitting awful low. Fun times. Fun times. All right, so we're gonna knock something else off the list. I just unhooked the line coming from the Schrader valve over there, hooking up to the nitrous system. It's got fuel in it, so I don't think I need to go check the fuel filter, fuel pump, yada yada yada. So if y'all can watch that, just gonna turn the key on. Wow, it's got plenty of pressure in that. So we can knock that off the list. Yeehaw. So I can hook that back up, and the fuel problem's off the list. All right. I talked to Trevor, my son. He's going to come up on his lunch break and bring HB tuner adapter thing to hook into the Obi-Wan Kenobi thing inside. And Tabby said that she couldn't get nothing to read on it, so I'm gonna give it a shot, see what happens. I don't know if we can get it to read or not. It'd be nice if we could. That way we could use these computers like they're intended to be used, by telling us what the heck's going on, because I don't know. I'm gonna do the simple things that I know what to do. I'm gonna pull the spark plug wires off here when the Trevor gets up there and to see if it's got any fire to it. I mean, it's the exact same drivetrain that was in the other Impala, and it drove for a month and a half. So it's all hooked up correctly. It might not be the nicest thing to look at, but it's all hooked up correctly. And I'm kind of picking things out of the air, try to look for, but I know it's got gas. I know you got power going to the crank sensor. It's got all the grounds hooked up on it. I've charged up the battery some more just to make sure it's got plenty of juice in it. It just no start. So I don't know. Once he gets up here, we'll hook that HB tuner up to the Obi-Wan Kenobi doohickey bob, and hopefully I'll tell us what to do. We will see. Well, haven't found out anything yet. I've done a lot of studying. Trevor came up, we've looked at everything around, make sure everything was good. As you've seen, we was getting fuel, no spark. So tonight's Wednesday, today is Wednesday, so I go to church on Wednesday night. So I called our Napa store here in town. That's where I get all my parts at, from Napa, G&W Auto Parts here in Gallipolis, Ohio. And I went and ordered a new crank sensor. Tabby them said they put a new crank sensor on, but that is what everything is pointing to. So I reckon I'm just throwing parts at it. But here is the number of the crank sensor. 146SB. So I'm gonna crank it back, jack it back up in the air, take the starter back off again, make sure you unplug your battery, that way it won't be sparking. Put the new crank sensor back on it, and no guarantees it's going to work, but this is all I got right now. Until I talked to a couple people, that's what they said it was. I went and researched a little bit. Crank sensor tells the computer to fire, when to fire. I don't know. So, going to undo the battery, then I'm going to jack it up in the air, and we'll take the crank sensor out, replace it with another one. Let's see what happens. All right, so we got good news, bad news situation here. The bad news. This is Thursday morning. Last time I was with you, it was Wednesday night. My GoPro went dead last night. And this here is the old crank sensor. See how this mounting surface is bent? The only thing I can think of is they didn't have this thing in there all the way, and when they tightened it up, it bent it, and it couldn't go on all the way. The good news is I got it started. Sorry I didn't bring you along. I got home from church last night. You see me take it up in the air, you see me take the starter off and take this off. I was trying to do a video comparison with both the new one and the old one. It went dead. So, put it on charge. It didn't charge all the way. I don't know what happened. But anyway, I went ahead and installed the new one. Brought it back down to the ground, hooked the battery back up. Hit starter, fired right up. I mean, bam, right then. So, that was the good news. Bad news, I didn't bring y'all along with it, so I'm sorry. But I reckon the old shade tree mechanic figured it out. Fuel, gas, fuel, air, and spark. That's the three things you need from way back in the 30s all the way up to still to today. We got the fuel, we showed you had the fuel, we knew we got the air, we knew we didn't have the spark, so I think this here is a big thing to get the spark. So on the LS's crank, if you got fuel and no spark, go check your crank sensor. Because this is a brand new one they just put on and still never got it started, but I just don't think it, where that bracket is bent, the new one wasn't bent like this. The only thing I can figure out is they didn't have it installed in there all the way. I don't know. But here, we'll start it up. Huh, watch it don't start now. There you go. Starts right up. Sounds good. So there you go. Thanks for following along, and thanks for everyone's suggestions on what was wrong with it. The grounds, I looked all the grounds, make sure all the grounds was hooked up. So thanks for all the suggestions on what was wrong with it. Hope this helps somebody out in the future. If they can't get their motor started, their LS, check your crank sensor. So I even had the multimeter out, and everyone knows I don't know how to use a multimeter, but I figured it out. But anyhow, thanks. Make sure y'all subscribe. If you like this, share it to somebody else. They might need to know about the crank sensor, which I'm sure everybody knows about it. And share, like, comment. Sean McNeil, McNeil's Garage, saying thanks for watching. See y'all later.